of the Browns' opening week 33-17 loss to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm Andrew Spade, joined by Jake Burns and Peter Moses. We're going to break down this game. Obviously, a disappointing way for the Browns to start the season. We'll try to react appropriately without melting down too much, even though that is obviously the tempting result. Fellas, I think where I'd like to start is last year the Browns started the season with a game against the Bengals that felt, I thought, somewhat comparable to this game in that the Browns kind of didn't feel threatened by the Bengals offense at any juncture. I had a similar feeling today from the Browns offense, from the defensive perspective of Dallas, that they didn't really ever feel that the offense of the Browns posed much of a threat to them, and they basically could kind of control the game throughout. Obviously, Dallas took their foot off the gas in the second half, but we saw something similar from the Browns at the end of that Cincinnati game. What do you think is the biggest takeaway from a game where it wasn't really competitive beyond the first half, Jake?
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it when you look back on, sort of how you felt about Joe Burrow and that group last year trying to move the ball in the Browns. It's a lot. You know me, I like to be able to sort of decipher everything from a different vantage point than what we watch, but I kind of wrote in the post-game recap, it felt like they were playing in a straitjacket. It just had the vibe of like a bunch of mental sort of like deliberations going on between play calling and like the guys operating on the field of how do we do this without shooting ourselves in the foot, but also like trying to get this quarterback in a rhythm. But also they're sitting on some of the stuff underneath, because why wouldn't you be sitting on some of the stuff underneath? And then from there it segues into feeling like there are 15 Cowboys defenders on the field and the Browns have no chance to move the football. So there are so many details inside of why that is that I don't have the answer to yet, that we have to watch more of. But your question about the general vibe of what that felt like, that is not a comfortable place to be. And we were in the middle of it. And even when, late game scenarios, the Cowboys were literally foot on the clutch, just coasting down a hill the rest of the second half. And the Browns didn't get the most intricate version of what Zimmer likes to do defensively, because, they get halftime, they're like, we don't need to do any of that. And they were incapable of doing anything easily. They had one drive where it took a couple things breaking the right way to work out. Other than that, man, it was really hard to watch. And I don't have a bunch of answers for why that is. So the thing that we're just kind of echoing and want to point out is it's one of 17, but as far as what you wanted to see in the first part of this operation, it was a complete and utter failure. So like I said, the job that we're trying to do here is figure out why that happened for you. But for now, we're watching it like you were. And if you're coming away from the game going, these guys are never going to win a game because this offense is awful, I can't tell you you're crazy for thinking that way, because that was as rough an offensive performance as I can recall. And we watched like Clayton Tune last year and some of those other quarterbacks waltz into Cleveland and get overwhelmed. It was an overwhelming feeling, and that's a bummer.
Let me just ask you a question, Jake. First time, long time. We watched 3 preseason games. Did you feel, outside of Watson and everything we'll get into there, did you feel like this was more schematically interesting or detailed or diverse in this game? Or did it feel like they actually had more interesting things happening in the preseason from an offensive perspective than what you saw today? Could you make an argument that you saw more interesting traits of what we thought this offense was going to be in the preseason? At some point, I didn't see motion or audibles or checks. It looked like a preseason offense, and it looked like a regression. And this is also, to sprinkle a little Watson into it, not the first time it seemed like when Watson is in there, the offense gets dumbed down.
Listen, they had like 7 legal formation and shift penalties here. Like, I'll go back and rewatch it and count them up, because some of those penalties get declined and they don't matter. And then you're looking at the post game like I was, and it was like Cowboys had 10 penalties and the Browns had 12. And I'm like, okay, that seems wrong. Browns had like 18 penalties, of which some were just declined out of like, we don't need it because it doesn't matter. It could have been over 20. I have to go watch it again. But like, this was a problem. Like, you want them to use motion and do things like that. I'm with you. I'm like, they can't even get lined up right. The tackle can't even be close enough to the line of scrimmage to not have a formation penalty. We're covering up people in formations that make them illegal, right? We're shifting and we're not coming set. Like, this is the problem with you want them to be creative. You want them to use motion. You want them to do diverse things. And I thought there was this like breadcrumb of that stuff. I need to, like I said, rewatch it closer before I kind of give sort of definitive answers on that sort of, the effort to do that, to put it like your question into frame. But watching outside looking in, it felt like they couldn't even do the little things, like get lined up right, let alone, oh, now I'm lined up where I need to be. Now I need to move in motion to do this, that, or the other. So I get why it felt that way. I think at some point as a coach, listen, they're not coaching them up to do that wrong. There's no coach that does it that way. There's also an understanding that, like, at the same time, you have to be able to get your players to do it. That's your job. That's why you're paid to do the job you're doing as a coach. And if you can't do that and you're trying to figure out how this is going to work, like you throw your hands in the air. We're not going to use motion because we can't do it. We can barely get lined up right. So we want answers. I get it. I think there's a lot of, with what we just watched, trying to figure out the race to figure out why it happened like that. I just know that at the root part of it, which is like you ask middle school coaches, what's your biggest goal for the preseason? We just want to get our guys in the right formations and lined up in the right spots. And for that stuff to be so frequent, I understand you changed a lot of your offensive staff and you were flirting with different things and ideas and locations and alignments, but that was really bad. I don't think I have one spot to come on the show and say, hey, they actually were pretty good in that phase. They were a pretty rough day from everybody across the board. Even the guys who were usually at the end of last year, mid to end of last year, really consistently big parts of the winning were rough today. So I'm as befuddled as I think everyone else is on the topic of like, what did we just consume? The question I have for you, Andrew, is like, I throw it to you, is like, is this the same level of Tennessee in 2019? Is this the same level of like, because when you and I were talking in the pregame,
Sure. Yeah.
It was like, I can't see a world where Dallas blows them out. And I'm not saying I did. Right. I'm just saying like this world where Dallas boat races them was foreign to an extent. We thought I think the general consensus is the Browns came in as favorites. Is like, they're going to lose. They could lose, sorry, but not like this. So I kind of ask you, like, where are we on this? Like, this is kind of out of left field.
Right, because as bad as the offense was, and we will spend more time, obviously, all week unpacking what went wrong with the offense, the defense was more disappointing in terms of where my expectations were versus what they put on the field. People will say that they were better in the second half. They were better in the second half because the Cowboys stopped trying.
They were better in the second half.
I'm just saying that that's a narrative that's out there, right?
Then I will say no.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you, Peter. I think that they were disappointing from the jump. They were able to take advantage of Dallas playing more passively in the second half at times to get more stops. But ultimately, the Browns, even if the offense had been better, would not have won this game because the defense did not have an answer for the Cowboys' offensive approach. And it's very reminiscent of the offensive approach taken by teams last year that diced up the Browns' defense. It looked to me a lot like what the Broncos and the Rams did in that two-game road losing streak mid-season last year. And I think that should be a gigantic warning sign for a team that talked almost exclusively this offseason about having learned lessons from last year to take into this year. If those lessons have been learned, they didn't show it today. They're keeping it a secret, at least for now.
Right. I mean, what I think I've said this on many shows we've done over the years.
Yeah, you have.
The thing that bothered me the most today is when effort is in question. Mm-hmm. And there were just times, and it happened way earlier than you would expect. These are usually like week 7 or 8 things that are happening in week 1, and it's not even much beyond like the late second quarter into the third quarter where, oh, they have no confidence they can win this game. The root of that issue is not for me to answer. It's kind of for the team to answer, and I think that will work itself out in real time throughout the season. But it was obvious. And listen, I will say the same thing having watched the Bengals lose to the Patriots earlier when that Cincinnati offense was anemic too. There is that thing we do where we just get laser focused on the team we care about and we forget all the other teams that play week 1 because there were some other ugly losses around the league. So I'm just saying, when you have no confidence in your offense, and I saw this to not to make it like this makes it better for you, but the Bengals were in the same boat. You watch that defense in that game. You're like, they're not going to do, like, they can't do this. Like, we're out here again, and the special teams are the same way. And it's just it's an uninspiring effort where you're like, okay, that was a clear mental mistake for no reason. Okay, didn't cut down the angle on punt return. Simple, but why? I don't know. Like, when you start to relax mentally and feel like we got no chance, man, we're down 14-3, this is over. You start to just gloss over all of the minor details about what it takes to be successful in the NFL. I don't think that's a secret for anybody watching. We can point those out to you if you want those pointed out to you in the coming days, but like, this is pretty obvious in the TV view that there was just a general vibe of like, we don't have a chance. And there are a lot of teams that you watch around the NFL these days where even when it is that number, and I hate to harken back on this, but like last year, fell behind Jaguars game, fell behind the Bears game, fell behind in many of those games where they didn't stop believing. I'm not here to do the names on this. This is not the thing we're doing yet. It's way
I don't know,
too
Jake.
early.
If I'm seeing people celebrate with their rock and roll guitar hands when they're down 30 points in the fourth quarter, does that mean they've stopped believing? Or
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to rewrite your coding on that, Denzel. Listen, I thought Denzel Ward played fine, but again, like, you know, this when you got like strumming the guitar motion going on and the scoreboard below your feet says 30-10, it's just kind of like a funny photo to take and still time. But like, I mean, I'm fine with emotion. I just guess like the body. I'm not a body language doctor. I know there are people that are famous for making themselves that in their podcasts. Shout out Bill Simmons, but like, I don't do that because I'm not good at it. But I'm just saying, it felt off. And I don't think that's crazy to say. That something about the spirit of the collective and the vibe in the stadium, I am sure we can ask some of our folks that are on our staff that were there, was not good. And I don't think it's hard to see that and say something is off. We will let the sort out of that something will happen. It's going to happen.
For reference, the Bengals were at about negative 0.1 EPA per play today, which is about where the Cowboys were. The Browns were at negative 0.3. So I think your point's well taken that the Bengals struggled. The Browns were in sort of the bottom tier of the league if you're just looking at EPA from today's games with the Falcons, the Giants, you're talking about the Raiders, and obviously then the Panthers had a pretty bad day in New Orleans. So it's not really the company you want to be keeping the first time that you've debuted your brand new offense. Peter, to that point, one of the other conversations that's happening around this team right now and the offense is how you parse out the limitations on offense in terms of the quarterback versus the offense as a whole. And I don't think either are blameless. Nobody's going to make that argument, right? But I'm just wondering your thoughts on how do you even separate those when there were a lot of issues across the board. Dropped passes. Obviously, we already talked about the penalties. Running game continues to be a non-factor. How do you try and segment who gets what blame?
I think we all feel like it's impossible to, and I think the thing that's frustrating about Watson, and this game adds to it somehow, is all we want is like a clear answer or picture that this is bad and it's over, or it's salvageable and there's hope. And I think maybe, and the national media might have showed us this, that maybe the answer is just we're too close and it's bad and it's over, and we're just too stuck in the details. But it's really also hard to judge Watson on the first 20 minutes of game time because he was getting murdered. And the play calling didn't help at all. The receivers didn't help all game. including to the very end, and the tackles were an absolute disaster. He looked like a Browns quarterback from 2001 just getting demolished by a line that had no business playing professionally. So the thing that's really frustrating, and I would say the same thing goes for the offense. It's really hard to judge an offense when Watson is holding onto the ball, throwing just absolute ducks 10 yards out of bounds where people are legitimately asking if he was actually trying to throw away or to a human being. And it's really just muddy, and I guess the answer is just will depend on the tape and the rest of the season. But it's still frustrating to get absolutely boat raced and still feel like you can't separate the answers for both the offense and Watson clearly. But also, I don't know, maybe we'll have this answer in 2 weeks. If they lose to the Giants, Andrew, is there any way if they lose to the Giants and he gets outplayed by Daniel Jones that you could not move to another quarterback?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, your point, Peter, is well taken that it's hard to know for sure. I think the reality is with the quarterback, probably that you never know for sure. I'm sure that there are Carolina fans tonight saying, well, I saw a few nice things from Bryce Young, and obviously there are still people fighting the Baker Mayfield wars as he goes and has a very nice opening day for Tampa Bay and a win. I don't think that there's in the NFL ever clear definitive answers on any of these players to the point where there's, unless you get to that sort of Charlie Fry, Colt McCoy level where it becomes painfully obvious that they're just not up to it, because you do have.
But this was a Charlie Fry level performance.
I mean, I agree with you, I feel like there was enough shown here that the answer is fairly clear. That it would, at this point, to me, take a significant turnaround. And I think the number one thing that I see is the number of passes, short, intermediate, and long, that do not go where they are expected to go.
You called this out in our VIP founders chat pretty well, right when the Elijah Moore off his hands pick happened. And even, greatest commentator of all time, Tom Brady, was like, oh, Elijah Moore should have been taller.
Right.
And he would have caught that. But to your point, you were like, absolutely not. He threw it 15 yards.
Right.
And still, it was too fast and over his head.
Yep.
And I'm with you. I don't think it's getting better. I just don't think it's getting better.
Yes. So there's issues with processing. Those continue to be there. There's issues with the tempo he plays within the offense, holding onto the ball too long. But I think beyond that, the thing is just the physical of where the ball is going. And there are times when there was a throw in the third quarter where literally I don't think any of us could say for sure right now whether he was throwing that ball away or not. It was so far out of bounds that it looked like a throwaway.
There was like 4 of those, Andrew.
Yeah, right. So I think that ultimately that is the death knell for a quarterback. If you can't expect an offense to play on schedule when the quarterback cannot deliver the ball accurately, consistently. That's just one of the basic things about playing quarterback. It shouldn't need to be said. And I think, again, I understand that there are reasons that people don't want to see that the writing is on the wall in that way, and we don't have to bury the quarterback now because the season is long. But I just, my personal opinion is that you don't recover from that becoming a fundamental issue in your ability. And I think you saw, to Jake's point, at times the players reacting to that idea that the ball wasn't going where he thought it was going to go.
Yeah. The stuff, I mean, you guys are making good points. I call it micro level accuracy, putting the football in a place that a guy can catch it and run with it and like making it easy on your receivers. That wasn't good enough today. Multiple, the Moore throw you guys pointed out is low. The next throw to Njoku is like high and behind him, so he can't catch it and turn up field and get 6 yards. Listen, we're talking about Watson. He wasn't good. And I want to reiterate, this is a collectively bad performance. Like everywhere it is, it's really bad. Unfortunately, there's a group of quarterbacks in the league who can overcome that and try to find a way to uplift everybody around them and make it happen. And I think the problem and why maybe you're not loving because we're spending so much time on this is like, well, everybody was bad. And again, Doesn't miss me. We watch the same game, folks. But the Browns paid him to do that sort of stuff. That was the whole reasoning, the whole rationale behind what they did. And this is like an example of, hey, they need somebody to make some silly great play that lights a fire under everybody. And why don't we get Watson to do that? Because he's done that in his past. Like, the Texans days are not fake. I promise to God, those things you saw on tape are real. Like, they happen. The problem is okay, at a simplistic level, he used to have an arrogance and a confidence by which he played. He thought he was the best player on the field, and he did that. Like, he played that way, which sounds probably very elementary to you, but when you play that way, you play a step in front of almost everybody. He thrived in empty because he could just kind of get in space, create, rip some throws, and then make people miss in the pocket and get out and create in the chaos, and he was good at it. It's kind of clear he's lost a step. He's not as fast or as shifty as he used to be. So the stuff where he used to get by in the NFL by getting out of structure and creating chaos heroics are not happening anymore. They're clearly not happening the way they used to. And the shoulder took so much damage. Look at the throw to Akins on the left side after he got out of chaos, and he just couldn't get it to him. He can't do those things the way he used to do them anymore. So as you approach 30 and as you've gone through multiple injuries, knees and shoulders, your body starts to tell you, hey man, that thing you used to do right there, I can't quite do it anymore. So how do the guys in their 30s find success? They are a step ahead of you mentally, and they're beating you to the spot. Look at Dak. Dak is like, you can watch Dak the way I can. Like, he physically is not young Dak anymore. He kind of like looks a little more stiff and rigid, but I'm telling you what, his brain is advanced, and he throws it to the spot that he knows people are going to be, and he knows the matchup he's going to get. That's how you find success into your 30s. That's something Deshaun Watson doesn't have and has yet to display. The ball that gets tipped at the line of scrimmage and empty, like, Micah Parsons is right there. How about you pump fake him and create an arm angle that doesn't get tipped? Like, it's the little stuff that he used to be good at. Go watch him when he was in his mid to low 20s in Houston. That's the stuff he did. That's the stuff he did. Now, he's not doing it anymore.
Andrew, don't do it. Don't do it.
So I'm just trying to paint the picture of how does this get better, and I don't have that answer. Right. But again, it's not all Watson. The body is starting to move on him in a way that he probably isn't used to, and also the part of the mental aspect of the belief that you're that guy again when you've missed that much ball and the world hates you.
You know what?
It's all there is what I'm getting at.
When Joe Flacco came in last year, and I'm sorry, we're on minute whatever, and I said Joe Flacco, but the game to Flacco in Stefanski's offense, the game moves slowly. And every time Watson gets the ball and you're watching him and you're just talking about vibes, the game looks too fast for him. He looks like he is not big enough mentally for the moment. He just doesn't, everything looks too fast. It looks overwhelming. And there's nothing about him that gives you faith that he's ever going to make a correct decision in this offense. And it also makes you feel like there's something else going on.
Right. I listen,
with the offense.
All I'm saying is he makes people miss. You guys watched it. I said this all off season. In the pocket, he can still make a guy miss. He did it again today. He made people miss.
Parsons sack in the first quarter.
That's great. He's doing that. What I'm getting at is when he gets out of there, and it was the same thing we said after the rewatch. The plays out of structure in chaos. He's making the first guy miss still. It's right there in front of you. I'm talking about being able to then get out of the chaos and make a throw that you have to contort your body in a weird way, or you have to do something unique. That's what is missing. And I think it's obvious why it's missing. So I am like, everything I believed about Watson was in display in that game. Like, he can get out of the stuff. He's still doing a nice job of making a man miss, but he's not able to thrive in the then chaos out of structure that matters. And again, you see the limitations of coming back from a shoulder injury like we saw. So again, the group was bad. I have to reiterate, they were in third and long all day. This is not pile on Deshaun Watson. It is because he's the guy and this is the situation. It's always going to be that way for the quarterback. He has great games. We're going to give him all the credit. We're waiting, give him all the credit. The Ravens game, Gave him a ton of credit. We'll do that. But what I'm getting at is like they were in third and long all day. They didn't run the ball. So the factors around Watson were not good either. Like that's just a fact. So whatever side of the fence you're on about Watson and where he's at and who he is as a quarterback, like the Browns didn't help much today. Zero ability to get into what you and I talked about in the pregame show, Andrew. On schedule football was rough. Early penalties, 1st and 15s, 1st and 20s. That stuff isn't helping him. It's just not. There was no screen game today that was in any way, shape, or form effective against an aggressive front. So the coach was bad. The play calling duo of Ken and Kevin was bad. The offensive line was bad. The run game was bad. And the quarterback was bad. So that's it. That's why you scored, 10 points? You get a trashy touchdown at the end, 17 points. Like,
Yeah.
the collective was awful. And we'll talk about the defense in a minute, but in the special teams, we've got to talk about special teams too.
Oof.
Yeah, the collective was awful.
Other than that, what did you think of the play, Mrs. Lincoln?
There you go.
That's it. I, as far as the scheme stuff goes, it felt to me, Jake, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, it felt to me like they tried some stuff early. I think I saw one RPO early. It felt like there was a change. The formations they were using with both tight ends kind of on a wing on each side at times to give the tackles help, but also spreading the field a little bit. And then as the adversity set in and they got down, the offense got very vanilla, static again, and they went back to under center play action on multiple plays in a row. I guess you can, if you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, make the argument that they said, all right, well, we're not getting this one, so we might as well pack in the new stuff and we'll do that next week or in 2 weeks or whenever we can get to it. But that's the benefit of the doubt. My feeling is this is the second year in a row that we've been promised a different offense that caters to Deshaun Watson's strengths, and it's not here. And I can't think at this point of a good reason why the offense continues to look very much like the Kevin Stefanski offense from 2020 to 2021 when all of the players are different. You don't even have enough tight ends to play 2 tight end sets down the line because you want to spread it out and then one gets hurt, but you're not running sets that would help you get more wide receivers on the field. The disconnect between how the front office assembled this roster and what we were told all offseason about what this would look like, and then what it looked like the entirety of the game, I think is stark.
Yeah. Well, you there's a lot of stuff there to peel back, right? Like they are not who they were in 2020 from a personnel standpoint. And I think the thing that we're going to be battling all year long is like who's more to blame, because is it the guys calling plays and structuring this, or is it the quarterback? And I'm watching some things. They ran RPOs that Watson has traditionally run. They ran empty sets that he thrived in during his Houston days. Like there is an effort to do some of those things, but there is not a doubt that I just think it's really hard to get into a flow of like what they want to do offensively when they're so quickly off the field. Like they're in third and long so often. The penalties were so quick and just consistently happening. I'm not giving the offense a pat. Like they were bad. I just don't know that I just can't make some giant conclusion about who they are. Like I don't even know. Like I don't even know what they were trying to accomplish.
It wasn't clear at all. And
right.
There was the way that they talked about this offense this offseason was as if the decision was definitive. They fired almost everybody on the offensive staff. For all of that change to happen and it come back and look the way that it did today, it feels like we're being gaslit by the team because it's not different enough to explain why they're talking about it that way. I want to see some proof of concept at some point of something that they've been talking up for 2 straight years now.
Yeah, it would be nice for them to just not get penalties so that they can try to get on schedule and then make some play action stuff that's meaningful happen. Like they were just one phase football all day, and it started early and it was uphill. So yeah, your point is right. Like I don't know who they are, and that's
I don't
maybe
think they do. That's
that's
the root concern here is that they don't seem to have an agreement within themselves. And that goes back all the way to what we have talked about, Jake, for a year and a half now. The Houston Texans game in 2022, Deshaun Watson's debut, they changed the entire offense. it was rough, and then they went away from that plan after one game. Ever since then, it has felt like a bipolar offense.
Yeah. I don't have a
No,
great
and I know
response.
we don't have the answers. That's just what we saw today. That's just
Today
what
was
we
so
saw.
hard. It's like trying to paint on like a ripped canvas. I mean, you're like every time you try to take a color off the easel, you're like
Right.
a knife is running through it because they're like continually starting behind the stick. Like, yeah, it's all bad. It's all really bad.
Are they making an offense for who they thought Deshaun Watson was? Or are they making an offense for who they think he is now?
I don't know.
It has to be. You hope it's the latter because the idea of him being the former is not. It's not there. I think you can have conversations about things he likes in terms of some form of like, hey, you like to do these things, we want to implement these things. There is that stuff in place. Like there's crossover. These guys are not. I'm so careful after they just got their butt whooped, but they're not that stupid. Like they're not that stupid. I think there's an effort here to put Deshaun into places that he's been comfortable and found success in the past, and it's a mixed bag of who's to blame for that. So yeah, it is hard to. You want an answer. I don't have that answer. None of us do, other than just like it is from the first watch on TV, where Tom Brady's voice didn't sound like Tom Brady. It was so weird. It was really weird. Like I didn't feel like I was listening to him.
It was kind of pitchy, and it had like a bit of a draw to it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
He's
It
been
just could have been
replaced
a
by AI.
me thing. Yeah, you could have convinced me that was somebody emulating Tom Brady, and I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah. But anyway, it's just a reminder. The Cowboys defense is good. It's going to be really good. Sure. They're really good up front. The Browns are not going to play a bunch of defenses that good. They will play plenty, but a bunch. And this team will look better on offense. Probably starting next week, they'll have some successful drives, and you'll kind of step back from the ledge a little bit because everything in the NFL is never as good as it seems or quite as bad as it seems. But I just want to reiterate, it's hard to pull things from this football game when it felt like the standard stuff that you want to be able to do is just align and use motion the right way. They couldn't do. Now, that's their fault. They've got to get those guys to do those things the right way. So there's no excusing the blame, but the point is the point there.
It's also hard because I've been listening to you guys for 4 months consistently without emotion say, golly gee willikers, I'm sure curious to see what's going to happen at the tackle situations. Mm-hmm. And boy, would it be a shame if them not addressing it in any kind of cohesive way would absolutely demolish everything they're trying to do and set them behind the sticks on second and third down. And you could argue be the cause of everything we're talking about.
Yeah. Listen, the darkest path this goes down, which is very easy to be dark in this moment, is like they can't figure this offense out, and it's this level of bad all year, and people are getting fired, and you maybe you just eat Watson's cap number the next year. I'm just saying that's the darkest, gloomiest path you can go down. I think it'll be better. There will be moments that it will not be what it was today, but I think what your expectation should be is for at least the first 10 games here. This is not one of the better offenses that you're going to consume. They need to lean into the defense, which is the right segue to feel like they weren't very good today, and they showed very little emotion that a team last year that just absolutely thrived on that would have done. Like this, okay, let me just be clear. This was the 49ers game, but the defense caved early.
Yep.
Think about it. Mm-hmm. PJ Walker can't really get anything going. Can't run the football, but you win it ugly because you just hang around enough to be in it to win it. They didn't. They gave up multiple. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can find them here in a moment, but like those early drives, and like Andrew, I am trying my best. I'm trying to keep calm. It's been my like no anger theory in life is just it's been like my thing. But if they don't stop these jet sweeps, I'm going to pull my hair out because like this is something that if you talk to
Can you just clarify that on your beard or on top of your head?
It would probably go beard because we're losing this hairline at the top's getting rougher.
Yeah, you want to hold
day.
on to that. You can't.
It's like it's Peyton Manning level 5 heading it up. But like what I'm getting at is I am so annoyed with 2 years in and seeing these things that it's like the preseason Vikings and Packers did
Yep.
this to them, and then they let CeeDee Lamb walk in and do it like 4 times for 40 yards. Like, what are you doing? How can you not fix this? This is like, do you think that these guys in Dallas are not watching this and saying, hey, maybe we should just run some jet sweeps at them, right? Because they don't really seem to handle those very well. Like, I don't know what world we're living in. The touchdown to Cooks, which I tried to put up quickly because I was so mad, is
God.
like, you're sitting in mug front 5-man coverage, man-to-man pre-snap. There's no indication it's going to be anything other than what you've shown. And like, how are we doing that still, man? I will say carefully that Juan Thornhill broke mentally in that moment. I don't know why he's looking in the backfield. I don't know what the heck he's doing. But like, I just am like, how can we be with these defensive backs? Emerson's been here multiple years, and Ward's been here multiple years, and all these guys have been here multiple years, and yet like you can't get them to disguise a zero blitz. Like you can't get any level of deception to make Dak have to hold on to the football for just a split second longer. He knew he was throwing the corner route on double China, the concept with 2 square ends and a corner route from number 3. He knew he was throwing it the second he like got to the line of scrimmage. It's embarrassing, dude. It's embarrassing. Like I'm so.
Let me just say this, Jay.
Yeah, dude. I don't.
But
Get
it's
me
good
out of
thing
this
you didn't
place.
get emotional,
Just
though.
Get
All
get
right.
me out of this place. I'm tired of it.
Well, I think a sentence that I don't want to say ever is you got to give Mike McCarthy credit because this was a good offensive game plan for what the Browns struggle with. The Cowboys were never over aggressive. They did not take a lot of deep shots. Dak was very efficient in getting the ball out of his hands very quickly. When people talk about Watson being under pressure all day, Dak Prescott was also under pressure, but he was decisive and quick with his release again and again and again and again. And what that does to this Browns defense that, as you correctly noted, plays so much on emotion, it slowly deflates them. So by play 10 to 12 to 14 of a drive, they look a little disinterested, and they're looking to make a big play happen. They get caught looking in the backfield, and Brandon Cooks is the only player in the end zone. The Browns' kryptonite is just taking what they give you and getting the ball out quickly so that the defensive line can't wreck your entire game plan. It's not tricky. And because they are so disguise-free, as you absolutely correctly pointed out, it makes it very easy to develop that game plan because you're going to be able to, with a good quarterback, diagnose this at the line of scrimmage. We saw on the play you're talking about, Dak Prescott got to the line, immediately identified the coverage, changed into the correct play, and that's easy. That is pitch and catch for the best quarterbacks in this league. One of the features of last year's Browns defense is they just did not play that many good quarterbacks. And the few quarterbacks that were good statistically tended to be younger players. They see more veteran quarterbacks that can do what Dak Prescott did to them this year. And I think Browns fans would be right to be very concerned about defensive regression based around the idea that if they're not going to disguise their coverages, the good quarterbacks in the league can just stand there on the field and call their own plays all the way down the field against them.
And you can trick yourself into like, well, the Cowboys only had 265 yards. Do you guys know how many yards the Cowboys had at halftime?
Yeah, they unplugged the controller.
264.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close.
So they had 215 of 265 total yards in the first half. If they would have had their foot on the accelerator,
400.
they could have gone for 400 yards. Like Dak just kind of missed some throws he doesn't normally miss. He didn't play very well in the second half, but it wasn't
He
like
also
the
didn't
Browns
have
were
a preseason,
blanketing
by the
it.
way. Yeah.
He didn't. So my point is like, okay, you can kind of trick yourself into believing, oh, they held him really well in the set. They didn't. Dak just missed a couple throws here and there that could have kept drives going. But like that first half was really rough. They had like 70 rushing yards, 160 passing yards, and they were manipulated up and down the field. So don't trick yourself into thinking this was like the defense actually did their job in the second half. Nah, man, that's not it. That's really not it. The Cowboys knew that, hey, because look what happened. But the Browns go 3 and out, right? And they punt and it's a touchdown. So it's all of a sudden 27-7. Like, hey, we're just going to coast and not turn the ball over the rest of the game. We're going to be just fine. So yeah, this was the Cowboys just in control from the start. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there are more questions. I certainly have a lot more questions about the defense going forward than
Of
I did
course.
coming into this one because,
Yeah.
again, everything that we were told during the offseason did not materialize as of week one. That they did not throw a changeup in this game. If I'm looking at the pitch tracker from MLB, they did not throw a changeup. Or if they did, I missed it.
I think the thing that's also frustrating, and a little bit last year, but like the things you talk about that hurt our defense, things like jet sweeps or being able to look at a defense and change something quickly at the line and be decisive, also feels like something our offense cannot do.
Mhm.
So it's what's really frustrating in watching it is you watch other games on Red Zone or other teams who are worse than us with worse rosters and worse coaching staffs ostensibly do things that you're like, and I understand that everyone on our coaching staff is so much smarter at football than I will ever be able to comprehend, but it's still hard to just watch them not be able to do those things so blatantly. And I understand this is one game, but that is the stuff that makes you frustrated beyond the box score,
Yeah.
which is
think
hard
that's-
to
I think
stomach.
that's very accurate. Yeah, I think last year was a very different feeling in terms of at times comparing what the Browns were doing to other teams and saying, "Oh, that's pretty cool." You know, whether it was moving Myles Garrett around, some of the twist stunt type stuff that they did on the defensive line. The reality though is that the Browns have not felt at what with their defense last year. It did not feel that they were playing from a place of schematic advantage as often as just that they were better than the other team and dominating them. You do become concerned because it does not feel like the Browns right now are playing with a consistent schematic advantage on any of the three sides of the ball, which brings me also to the special teams, which were dreadful.
Yeah,
Absolutely
like
dreadful.
kickoff penalties, illegal formation on a kickoff. Like all you've been doing is trying to get better at kickoff stuff, and those were a mess. The punt coverage was awful. I thought Bajorquez punted terribly today
Yep.
too. Line drives, no hang time. I mean, guys, I hate nothing. I hate more than week one.
Yeah.
I'm building a new website and so excited to do this with you guys. And like, we have to come in here and be. There's not one first watch of the game positive element of what we consumed, and that's such a bummer to the fans. It is like, it is gross, man, from every angle. Like, I've been trying to be patient with what Bubba Ventrone is doing, and like, do think coordinators of special teams sometimes find blame for things where they have nothing they can do about it. But like, from a preparation standpoint and from an execution standpoint, it's an absolute F. And it's a disappointment that even that phase has to match the other two phases when there's no reason for that crossover. The Browns couldn't get past the 5-yard line on kick returns.
Yep.
I mean, it just didn't. And then the one time they let the ball hit before it went into the end zone, so that means you don't even get it at the 30. You have to take it at the 20. So, golly, man, like as far as like the mental part of the game, the penalties, the mistakes, the everything about like knowing the new rules, and it was so disappointing. It's just like, I don't know,
What
man.
I would say is this: if you are going to not play most of your starters for the entirety of the preseason, there should be, I think, from fans, a reasonable expectation that some of the rust will have been taken care of through practice. And if that isn't possible, then you got to start playing these guys in the preseason to get this stuff out of your system. If these mistakes are inevitable, they need to be happening when the games don't count.
Couldn't agree more. I like him.
But also our track record's so good of keeping our guys healthy. So
Yeah, yeah, that's the other
Yeah,
one.
right.
Sure.
Perfect roster health and perfectly prepared for the regular season. So an A+ preseason all the way
And
around.
I will say the last thing before we get out the door is like you made this point, and I thought it was well articulated a month ago, maybe no, not even that much, 2 weeks ago, whatever. Which is like everyone wants to say, well, they could have used this time in preseason to get better, and cool, like that's what you want to hold on to. You do you, homie. But like That's not even the big concern. A couple drives in the preseason doesn't solve what you want it to
Right.
solve. What is solved is when you're out there cohesively practicing together all the time in training camp, in reps together, and all those things add up and stack up to trust and belief and confidence. And they didn't have that. Jerry Judy's out for a portion. Mari Cooper misses a portion. They're dealing with other guys in and out. David's in and out. And I'm not saying that they're the only NFL team that deals with this. It's not the point. I am saying, though, that like it's pretty clear that this collective group had no cohesiveness, and that was not helped by the continual shuffling that the injuries are forcing into the equation here. I think this would be, I said this to somebody today, but like, even if the circumstances were as good as they could be for the Browns, they're staying on schedule, they're doing all these, they're still going to struggle. They're just going to struggle right now because there is no pathway to easy concepts and yards and production for them. So that's where I'm like scratching my head a little bit about this stuff. Is I like to paint a picture for you about how does this get better. I'm not sure I have that answer for you.
Yeah.
And that is a really bleak
The
scenario.
reality that's where the Browns are in year 3 of acquiring a quarterback for 3 first-round picks plus and $230 million guaranteed.
And it's annoying, Andrew, but I don't even blame people for looking at the Mayfield line and being like, look at that. Listen, I get it. We don't even have to go back through all the things surrounding it. I just get it. I get it. So,
absolutely. And appears I was dead wrong. I thought he would take a step back, but they put it on Washington today. And, like you have said recently, we're not rooting against him. Good for him. So I think that for this to be where the Browns are with where they are in their window, their building window, with the amount of money that they are spending on the team, there's not really a way to frame what happened today as anything other than a bitter disappointment.
What a start for Huntington Bank Field, am I right? Let's go.
Exactly. You can do the thing where you try and put a positive light on this. I don't think that that's particularly helpful or necessary. This is as bad of a season opener as you can have when you have the ambitions that the Browns have. They were at home against a team that they, at least on paper, are more talented than, and they didn't look like they belonged on the same field as them. It's very frustrating and very disappointing, and I don't think that there's really another way to talk about it. We will get more in depth about what they did wrong throughout the week, but for tonight, I think that's about as far as we can take this. Any closing thoughts?
I have a question for Jake. One question. Andrew, if you want to chime in on this as well, because you're smarter than me. Hypothetically, let's say this goes, hypothetically, as bad as it possibly can.
All right. I'm with you so far.
Do you think there is a world where Andrew Berry and the decision makers can create a competitive team with the money being spent on the cap over the next 3 years? Is it, I think that's do you see a world where it's possible for them to remain competitive if they're eating $120 million over the next, $80 million over the next two future seasons?
Yeah. The only way is they're so bad this year that they get a quarterback in the first round, the top of the draft. That's it. It's the only way. You get a rookie quarterback who's pretty good. He's on a rookie deal, and he comes in and has not even a C.J. Stroud-like impact, but a level of player that is Anthony Richardson level type guy who you got some promise and hope. That's the only way, because you're not going to – that cap hit is so large that like going out and getting somebody – I'm not saying him, but like Kirk Cousins or somebody is
Kirk Cousins? I don't know.
I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Like the type of
Yeah,
$80 million quarterback.
Right.
Like it's just hard. First of all, those guys don't become available very often. Second of all, it's tricky to be able to land them. I think the only way, if you're going down this dark alley and like the thing that's stopping, again, in this hypothetical world, that Deshaun Watson ultimately proves to be the thing that stops them from going the places they want to go, then the only way is a rookie quarterback that you find a way to take near the top of the draft. That's it. And then you get gold early.
Purely hypothetically in this situation, if you were thinking about that, that might be why you're keeping around Jameis Winston and DTR. Right?
Maybe. I think I get where you're going with that. I think they want to win. I think they think those guys are their best pathway to winning. I don't think they're doing anything nefarious behind like, hey, we're going to... I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just getting it like... They think they can win with Winston. They think they can win with DTR. If there's like, my theory here is the same as it was with Mayfield in 21. They're going to put him out there no matter what. They want to know without
100%.
doubt left possible that Deshaun Watson is cooked. He cannot do this. And they did that with Mayfield, even against they should have shut him down, whatever. Like, he wanted to play. They're like, all right, man, you want to play? Go play. It's going to be the same with Watson. They need to know without any doubt that he can't do it. And they'll keep playing him until, like, it does. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're 1-9. Again, we're in a dark alley here, but, like, that's where it's at.
Right now we're tied for second in the division, so
there we go.
We're okay.
I want to say this. I think beyond whatever Watson does as a player, the challenge here is finding a quarterback that this offensive staff, and particularly the head coach, can build an offense for that he wants to run. Because that seems to be, going all the way back to Baker Mayfield, the biggest wrench in the gears year after year, is that there does not look to be a comfort between the quarterback and the head coach in terms of what they're running and when. So I don't think that needs to be a first-round quarterback that's one of the best quarterbacks. I don't think you have to look much further than what the Vikings just did with Sam Darnold today. It was not breathtaking, but it was coherent. Mm-hmm. And what I have failed to see from this head coach, offensive staff across the board is often enough a coherent approach. And listen, if it's Joe Flacco and you trade for Flacco from the Colts or bring him back next year, whatever, man. But you just have to find the person that wants to run the offense that Kevin wants to run, because that match continues to not find itself in Cleveland.
Yep. We'll break it all down. We'll get the all 22 tonight and tomorrow, and we'll try to produce what we think are the answers for you guys. But we don't probably have them. The answers are lying behind the doors of Berea, and we'll see if they're able to produce some of them. If not, we are in the midst of breaking down a lot of draft tape. But it's week 1, and we don't have to do that. So let's see if they can bounce back in the next 3 or 4 weeks, because we've talked endlessly about how important the front end of the schedule is and how they have to win ball games. And we need to see that, see it happen. So big week coming up, man.
It's a huge week for the Browns. They'll be back next Sunday, 1 o'clock against Jacksonville. We will be back tomorrow, obviously, with plenty of analysis of what the Browns just did against the Cowboys. And we will be back with a post-game show again next Sunday at 7:30 as well. So
what a freaking time to subscribe to BrownsFilmsBreakdown.com. I'll tell you what.
You won't find better answers anywhere else.
You want to pour your feelings somewhere, you get in our subscriber chats. You get in Jake's immediate game notes, recaps. Man.
It is going to be a very bad time to not know where to get your Browns news. So you want to make sure that you've got where you're going for your Browns news locked.
Call us your warm blanket, baby.
There you go.
We are here.
Yeah. So
Take care
we'll be back. We'll be back with a podcast tomorrow, and we will be back with a full breakdown throughout the week. And then again, like I said, post-game show next Sunday night, 7:30 again, as the Browns go to Jacksonville, take on the Jaguars. Thank you to everybody for joining us live. I hope you enjoyed this. This will also be out as a podcast, so if you're listening later, hope you enjoyed it there as well. Be well, everybody. Go Browns.
Shout out